talking about starting a podcast, right? And
yeah, for a few months now.
Yeah, for like a few months, and it's hard to make it happen. And so I'm glad we're kind of like jumping in a little bit cold, but just at the right time, right before the Ergoversary. I think people are gonna like kind of want to see some organic, like just content coming from regular people around the way. I think lots of people will like recognize our names, TIMERG here and Marc the Shark. So I also encourage other people to like do something like this too. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the spirit of like this and the podcast is trying to enable folks just to send it, right? If you got an idea you're super passionate about Ergo, no matter your tool set, figure out what you want to do and just give it a go. Community members most likely are on board. I remember I reached out and I was like, hey, what do you guys think? And Tim's like, dude, that's a great idea. Let's do that. So here we are a few months later. So might take some time, but good things take time.
Yeah, it's like that with a lot of stuff. Like, we'll talk about the ErgoHack in a little bit, but I've had people encourage me to contribute, and I've done two ErgoHacks now, and it's like I don't have any coding skills. Like, I really don't. I know basically what Python is, but that's not that useful.
For sure. But sometimes though, you like from my like career experience, like you don't even need to know how to code for the most part. If especially if like the theory behind blockchain, you can just say, hey, here's a diagram of how it works, and just make sure that works for the Ergo ecosystem, and then go hand that off to a software engineer or whoever's going to be actually developing it. And then that way, there's some more, participation, I guess, on both sides. But, I think coding scares a lot of people to kind of get involved in stuff, but you certainly don't have to, from my perspective.
And, I think it's kind of similar with this podcast. It's like none of us like actually know how to record stuff. And then here comes Andy is like, oh, we'll help you out. And so, for anybody who's watching this, watch our growth over the next 3 episodes. We'll see like how things change. And as we learn and get better, like it's going to be really cool. So the podcast, you want to talk about like how we named our podcast?
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of behind the idea of, peer-to-peer network. So we have one peer, Tim's another peer. And so we're just kind of, just like within the network, pinging between each other. We're going to be pinging between different ideas around Ergo, the ecosystem. So that's, I guess, in my words. So how about yourself?
Yeah. I think something I also wanted to like highlight for people was just like the story of Ergo, and like really have a way to talk about why it matters for normal people, and like how it's meaningfully different from other projects, right? There's just like so many things. Like I started making this list of things that aren't like a project, it doesn't have a token or anything, but maybe just like a story or like how Ergo developed organically and with the goal of like just being a fair and transparent platform for DeFi, right? Like
for sure.
There's no like entrance fee. You don't have to like buy a token, other than Erg, and Erg is like $1 right now, and that will do 1,000 transactions.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think too, like with part of this, at least I think I'd like to take a stab at, so to speak, is just like, why this matters to like the normal person, and even like translating that down to like, non-crypto folks. Because my mom, for example, last week was like, so what can you do with Ergo? Like, what can you buy? What can you actually do? And I was like, that is a really good question, because from like, non-crypto stuff, you can't really buy things with Ergo at the moment. Sure, you can do decentralized finance, and but then also away from that, there's all these sort of words like DeFi, decentralized finance. There's I'm trying to think of other words, permissionless. There's all decentralized. There's all these words that have like these inherent meanings, but like it's very nuanced in some sense. And so, sure, I guess you can understand obviously what decentralization means, but why it matters and like into the context of everyday life, I think is important to kind of spell out and maybe that can bring in more people down the road. But I feel like, to me at least, that information is very disparate, right? It's very hard to find, or you just need to know where to look. Sometimes I'm not really good at finding things. Ask my wife. And so hopefully this podcast can as Tim said, sort of bring everything together, grassroots, kind of explain Ergo. It's for everybody. And then hopefully that's our biggest takeaway for the viewers and even ourselves, I suppose. But anyways, going on a tangent.
I was, as like I mentioned, my list of things that we might talk about throughout the podcast series. I'm going to learn a ton, like reaching out to people, like what was this thing, like, what's up with that? So I'm excited. So next thing, or I guess the first thing is talking about Ergoversary. So Ergoversary is, of course, celebrating Ergo's birthday, and that's July 1st, right? And this happens every year where the community really comes together to talk about like just what's going on around everything, and like it's an exciting time because Ergo is still really young, and there's a lot of core development that's still happening, as well as like this sort of ancillary projects that grow up as the core protocol supports more and more things, right? So like Node 6.0 is not even out yet, like this isn't my final form. So it's coming up, and there's just like so much. There's going to be like actual legit academic papers discussed and new developments from like around the university. If you've been around Ergo for a little bit, you'll hear Dionysus. You hear that name. He was one of the people who was like early development of like what makes Ergo possible. So like people from Stanford, I don't know where TU Win is from, but professors of computer science are going to share their new developments, new ideas. There's going to be some Twitter spaces from kind of around crypto. So folks from Nervos, CKB, from Alephium, and really just like sharing like, hey, like what is the future of proof of work? And to me, that is like such an important question as everybody's like transitioning to proof of stake. It really rings to me like one of those opportunities to have like a counter narrative that it's like no, like everyone's wrong, and this is going to be a time when projects like Ergo, like Alephium, like CKB, they're going to be rewarded for like sticking to their guns and not just like going along with the narrative of proof of stake rather.
Right.
Because I mean, it's only 15 years old, proof of work. It's like, how could we think like, oh yeah, this is cool, but it's done, it's developed, Right. There's so much. There's so much, especially regarding like balancing of power grids, which is really cool to me. As we develop more like sustainable energy sources like wind and solar, nuclear, we need more demand. It's not that we need more energy, we need more demand so that we don't overload our grids, and that power is available for when the peak rises up. So I just think that that's just one tiny example of like this whole universe that hasn't opened up yet for proof of work. And it's like, there's so much more to do. And another one is AI, right? So now that there is a bunch of demand for graphics cards, and guess who mines with a graphics card? Ergo.
You do.
Yeah, we do. And so it's like, oh yeah, all those ASICs that are mining Bitcoin. Yeah, that's great, but it it doesn't like help balance the demand for AI. And so I think there's just a lot to explore here, and I am just an average bear, and I don't even know what's going on. So I'm excited to hear the talk from all of these all these projects about, what is the future of proof of work.
Definitely.
And then of course, like the next 5 years of Ergo.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I mean, Ergo is 5 years old, and
Yeah.
for the next 5, I can't wait, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially too, I think from a miner perspective, we're always worried about, the emissions is like keeps being reduced and reduced and reduced. So now we're at 27 ergs for one given block. And so I think in the next 5 years, obviously, I think it drops considerably. So it'll certainly be interesting to see what the speakers have to say, maybe relative to that. And then I guess, obviously, again, from a miner's perspective, the price action to it. And then of course, how that incentivizes developers to kind of stick around and continue working with the ecosystem. So, but I think, like you said, there's a lot here already. And so in 5 years from now, I can't imagine the ecosystem probably just going to blow up in a good way.
Yeah. And it's like, there's so much here now and so few people know about it, but it's ready, Ergo's ready. Right. It's ready for
Absolutely.
more people, and not that we're done or anything like that, but it's like comparable to much larger chains with more funding, and definitely a larger percentage of the tokens went to a private somebody,
Right. Yeah. And that's huge. And again, going back to like, I guess, why Ergo for me and for you, for me, it was just like, it's very similar to Bitcoin, the no pre-mine, with that respect. So no VCs got the extra money, and then we're still with GPUs, so it's very accessible at the moment. Whereas like, hey, I want to mine Bitcoin. Well, it's not really super feasible for a lot of people, $15,000 for one miner. And then it's just, from that perspective, again, it's just like, it's kind of a scary investment, because what happens if it breaks? I've seen sometimes these things break, then you're out $15,000 versus, you say, one GPU, although it's nice to consolidate your hardware, but still it's kind of a scary thing, especially if you're not used to that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't solo mine, right? Like
no.
You can't solo mine. That's not reasonable. Lottery.
You could, I suppose. They have like those little chips where it's basically, I think that's what they're doing, is solo mining, but like the odds that you to get it is like so low. But if you win though, you get like, or not win, but if you find a block, you get like six Bitcoin right now, or is it 3 Bitcoin? Either way.
Down.
Yeah. Okay, 3. So yeah, 3 Bitcoin right now is still a considerable amount of money.
Yeah.
Might be worth it. I don't know.
So just like, since I heard you talking about like kind of some of these things that attracted you to Ergo, how did you get into Ergo? Like what's your story?
Yeah. So I initially was like a huge fanboy for Cardano. And then and that was probably in 2020, 2022, very around the same time that they started doing the Plutus Pioneers. And so I got on like the first wave of that, but it just felt like super nebulous. And there were some other people that are in the development space that I was talking to, and I don't know, it just felt like super nebulous. And then I think I saw like a few videos of like Big Pay, he was like mining Ergo, or like Dan, the crypto recruiter, he was talking about Ergo and yada yada. And then some of the miners started talking about it on YouTube, and I was like, oh, maybe I should start looking into mining, because I was going to set up a stake pool, but then quickly realized I don't have enough ADA. People don't know who I am. This doesn't really make too much sense to make a stake pool. So figured out Ergo, made a bunch of spreadsheets in terms of cost analysis. So, hey, if I'm going to put 5K in crypto equipment, how much should I expect to get back? Ran the math, did the numbers. Then it was like, hey, this is kind of a no-brainer based on the previous cycle high. So like price didn't go to $18 yet. So I think it was like maybe $5 or $6, something like that. And I was like, hey, if this goes back to 18, $20, this is going to be a great investment. And then it did. So I was like, yes, this is awesome. And then unfortunately though, quickly I realized but some parameters changed, the amount of data within the block changed. And so one of my cards went from 170 mega hash all the way down to like 130. So that was like a huge hit just in terms of ERG per day. And then the bear market happened, and then I stopped mining. So long story short, was at Cardano. Cardano kind of led me to Ergo. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to stay here. And then as of late, I was like, hey, how can I help? What can I do? Where can I be pointed to? And then QX kind of picked me up into the Sigma mining pool. And then here we are developing and doing stuff that I never thought I would do before. And so it's been a fun journey. Absolutely.
That's exciting, man, to like end up someplace you weren't expecting, really.
Yeah, 100%. Like I kind of wanted to be, I guess, in this vein, but like it was just like, how do I get there? It just felt so nebulous, you know. Like I'm still learning stuff today where it's like, oh, okay, you know, the Explorer has APIs and I need to pull from the APIs. So sometimes I guess my head is too far, like close to the trees that I can't see the forest through, you know what I mean? So it's been a very humbling experience, but you know, and even like we were saying in the beginning of the podcast, it's like, if you're interested in something, there's likely somebody to, you know, be like, hey, go this way in terms of whatever you're trying to do, whether it's this podcast, whether you're developing, whether you're like you were saying, you know, doing an ErgoHack. You know, this community is so friendly. So if you truly do want to help, there's so many people out there that are most likely willing to help you.
Yeah, totally agree, man. That's also like a part of what brought me to Ergo. So I guess first for me, funny story, I had no knowledge or interest in crypto really until 2021.
Okay.
And you know, I had seen Bitcoin like go to 19,000 for the first time, and I saw it crash, and I was like, like I knew, you know, like obviously.
Yeah.
And just kind of dismissed it from then. And then in early 2021, maybe like January, my mom, my like 65-year-old mother asked me like, hey, Tim, like what's Bitcoin? My advisor was like saying that I should put like 0.5% into Bitcoin. And I don't even know what that is. And I was hoping you could tell me. I was like, well, you know, like I kind of know, but let me like actually do a deep dive for you and give me like a week and then I'll call you back. And so I just like started learning so that I could explain it to my mom in terms, you know, it's like explain it simply, then understand. And then I was like, the light bulb went off. I was like, oh, this is great. Like, what was I thinking? So I got into Bitcoin and
did your mom get into Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Hell
yeah. And you know, and then I started looking at other things, like what are all these other projects, and I took that lens of ergo maximalism and just like, okay, this is like to some extent it's appropriate. You know, like there's like a lot of bullshit that goes on, and people are trying to make money, and they don't really care about me. You know, so I just like did a whole survey of stuff. I like, of course, checked out Ethereum as that was like the main narrative in 2021. Came across ADA as a top coin, surveyed the ADA ecosystem, and came across Ergo as like the oracles, right? And hearing hearing Charles talk about Ergo and Kushti, and that led me into it. And I started, of course, with the manifesto, and it was just like, this is not a scam. You know, this is not the same thing as all the shit coins that the maximalists are talking about. And so to me, it started to stand out there. The built-in privacy was super cool to me. I've never been like a super private person online, but I also am like a little bit of a libertarian, like a little streak of libertarian in me. And it's like, I totally think we should have the choice, and Ergo just like gives people choice, right? And so privacy, and then like non-custodial dApps, to me that just makes so much sense. Like SigUSD, it's like nobody
explain non-custodial dApps just for folks that are just like, maybe they've never heard of Ergo and they're like, hey, what the heck is a non-custodial
app? A non-custodial dApp means that nobody actually takes control of your coins. It's like this machine that is perfectly sealed up with, like, you know, you put your money in and then you get something out of it, or the other way around. and nobody can interrupt that process. It's literally the only way would be to kill all the miners, right? And
Right.
that's
Don't do that.
really it. Yeah, don't try that. And so it's just like this indestructible, resilient thing, and it only benefits average people. Like rich people don't need that. They don't, and then they can't profit from it. Or like you can buy a bunch of erg, but that helps everyone,
Right.
Yeah. So that was my way in.
Okay.
I wanted to like contribute. I started writing. I wrote an article called Ergo and the Lessons of Bitcoin Maximalism, and that is really like giving details about all the stuff all the lessons I learned from like studying Bitcoin and people's like conservative approach to crypto, and how that is really lived out in Ergo. So once I made that, I just kind of like wrote it and put it out there, and then people started hitting me up to ask me to like write some more, and so I wrote a ton of stuff.
Okay, nice.
Around, yeah, and my life is getting crazy, and so like I can contribute less and less, but I'm super happy to like be able to be here with you and like do a podcast every now and then.
Absolutely. So so you'll be the side of things that can explain it more clearly than maybe I can. Absolutely.
I'll do my best.
No, that's awesome that you did the deep dive in, because I think that even goes again, like we don't normally see that, I feel like, and then people who do get involved in crypto, whereas like right now everyone's like Nike, right? Charles is Pig's meme coin, and they're just like, oh, I'm gonna make a bunch of money, let me just go full send into that. They don't understand the basics, the inputs and outputs, so hats off to you for sure for like understanding the fundamentals, because again, I don't think the general market, it just feels like right now crypto in total is just feels like a wild west around trying to grab money, and everyone's just trying to like make money, and it's just like not to the primitives or the first principles of just like why crypto was first created. And so and so figuring out the system level of things and how things work, that's awesome that you did that.
Yeah, dude. That was one of my favorite lines from that first article that I wrote, was that the purpose of crypto is not to make you rich, but to make you free, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so for better and for worse, I remember seeing what is it, like Pepe come up, and I was like, oh yeah, that's probably going to make somebody rich, and I ignored it because
right.
my family principles. But
totally. And like, yeah, it's crazy because I mean, even like for me, when I was in Cardano for a little bit, that was when the NFT phase was starting to pick up. Like I could have bought a what's that Cardano buds, space buds. Like I could have bought a couple space buds, and I was like, what am I doing this for? And then I did jump into a Cardano project, and then it got rugs, you know what I mean? And then it was just like, and then it just seemed like rug after rug, and it was just like, what's the point of creating all this stuff? I got really upset with it, because it's like, I don't want to just create a project and then I get bored of it, and then I either rug people on purpose or rug people accidentally. So that's why I was like, you know what, maybe I don't want to develop something, because it's kind of because then people did get upset. Like this one project, Cardano Gods. Yeah, I even got like I got 2 rare ones, and I was like, dude, hell yeah, good for me. And then they rugged it, and it was just like, just frustrating, It's like, and if that's your first experience, whether it's Ergo, Cardano, or whatever, that's gonna hurt a lot of people coming in and out of the ecosystem. And so like the first entry doesn't need to be, in my opinion, this some type of meme coin, because people are going to get hurt, because it's going to be all this FOMO. They're not going to know how to handle it, and then they FOMO into it, and then they get pennies left or nothing at all.
Yeah, like it's just a bubble. You're just trying to ride a bubble.
Right. Exactly.
So speaking of being discouraged and not developing something, there was an ErgoHack recently. You wanna talk about something you did develop?
Yeah, for sure. And let me pull up Paideia. Hope I had my page set up. One moment. Here we are. Do my window. Yeah, so I, since I'm now helping run the Sigmanauts mining pool with QX, I was like, hey, let's submit something for this ErgoHack. I haven't done an ErgoHack before, so I was like, yo, it'd be super sick if we could do something. So here's most of the projects. I believe this screenshot is missing Kushti's project, but nonetheless, here's everybody's. And then here's in Paideia where we all voted. And so a lot of really good projects. I was very, very impressed. I don't think the final voting is complete yet, or rather, I think that it is complete. The results just haven't been shared yet. But for the community vote, again, super honored that our team won. Shout out to the miners that supported us for the mining BTC swap. But we had a lot of really cool projects that we got to see. So if you didn't know, QX set up this DAO on Paideia. And so from here, basically, we'll just click mine, ours. So we have our name, the content, right? So we got to see how many, so you could either vote yes or no. We got 29 votes. Heck yeah. And then if you wanted to see our submissions, here are our actual submissions for our swap. And then you can even see other projects, so like Crystal Pool, it had 25 votes. So Paideia was a really cool tool where I think it was, if you submitted to, so Kushti originally was like, hey, let's put together some sort of reward for the community and you guys get to vote on it. So I think he donated like 500 ERG, then quickly that launched all the way up to like 7,500 ERG, which was really great to see like the community just go out and be like, yeah, let's send it. And so the SIGs were like, hey, all right, let's vote on this, see who's going to win. So whoever voted or whoever got raffle tickets gets 5 votes. The Sigmanauts themselves individually, you get 2 votes, and then the community members, regardless of who you are, you get 1 vote. And so you get this DAO token from the ErgoHack, and then from there you come to this website, you stake it. So we'll just check that out here real quick. Right, so I got 1 stake token. Cool. I already staked it, right? So it doesn't show anything else. Let me go back. And then from there, you just hit vote. You sign the TX. Boom, boom. Now it's counted. So again, going back to, why Ergo? This is something that's really cool from a democracy standpoint. So it's like a pseudo democracy, I suppose, in some sense. So you can vote for anything, create proposals for anything, and then if it passes, you put in the logic, whether it's sending funds, doing whatever the case to facilitate that. So that was really cool. But our project in particular allows, originally we wanted to create an NFT, which would act as some type of ID token. So kind of, we were talking about, Tim, the custodial or non-custodial dApps. We pretty much wanted to do something very similar to where the miners would prove that they're the miner with that specific address without having to give their IP, without having to give any type of sensitive data. So by minting this NFT, this token, you would now allow us to figure out that, hey, you are the miner you are saying you are. And then with that, we can change different parameters, configurations. So part of the parameters configurations in this was being able to swap for BTC, Rosen, whatever. And so we actually have a, in the, actually, can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, kind of doxing someone I have, but in any case, so here's the state key. Here's some, here's one of the tokens I minted. So we got Ergo. So that's going to be 80% of your reward would be Ergo. RSPCT, you're going to have 20%. And then here's some other things I'm kind of just messing around with. So fan club, QX, we kind of joked around like the QX fan club, and then that would have like a theme within the UI. And so maybe moving forward, there'll be Cyberverse, maybe Bober, maybe Comet, etc. So this is how we'll facilitate that. So, but not to talk too much about our project, but so that's the ErgoHack. Really great to see all these projects sort of, make it happen. I'm excited to see kind of what happens moving forward. I know there's already talks about another ErgoHack with respect to UI, so that'll be interesting. I don't know, Tim, any thoughts on the hack?
No, that's so sick, man. And I love how the hacks are able to kind of leverage the new like kind of cornerstones that are being erected around the ecosystem. It's like all this stuff using Rosen, right? Like there's Rosen port, you're swapping to Bitcoin, through Rosen, and that's like such a nice counter. That's such a nice counter to like, oh, what is the pool that like just 100% of the people who mine in this pool just sell their erg and buy Bitcoin with it?
Yeah, 2 miners. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now we're keeping it local. Like people still get their Bitcoin. They can use it in DeFi, and
absolutely
have to sell their ergs. It's
right.
I think it's great, man.
Yeah, and I saw a video to Son of a Tech. He had I think it's Versus Coin or something like that, or Varus Coin. Anyways, they're like, oh hey, you can mine up over 20 coins with our setup, and I was like, well, in a very similar sense, you could mine if we had 20 tokens facilitated within the swap. You could essentially swap for 20 different tokens, including erg. So it's really the sky's the limit. So if you're super bullish with a bunch of different projects, maybe do 50% erg, 20% BTC, and then 5% a bunch of different stuff. So, and then honestly, the framework is going to allow us to do a bunch of different things we haven't really envisioned before. So like,
yeah.
But in any case, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Right. It's all right.
But yeah, the whole hack itself was around Ergo as a smart layer around Bitcoin. So we really needed to facilitate, integrating Bitcoin in there, because as itself, it didn't really make too much sense just in terms of the mining pool. But yeah, here's the information here. Let's see. Yeah, so Ergo as a smart layer for Bitcoin. Here's the prize pools. Here's our schedule, right? So we had our welcome with Kushti and Cannon, I believe, and then we did some development. Shout out to Andy for editing all of those videos. That must have taken some time. And then shout out to also for the judges. So now we're just waiting on the judges, and then I guess they're gonna submit it in the Ergo Summit. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, I love the concept of Ergo as a smart layer for Bitcoin. The whole like L2 scene is a little weird for me, especially around Bitcoin, where it's like, oh, we're going to use the Lightning Network, and it's like it doesn't seem like it's taken off. It seems still like limited, like it's still doing the same thing that Bitcoin is able to do, or it's like some like off-chain thing, or it's custodial in some way, like the Fediments, like those don't seem as good as like the non-custodial dApps I mentioned, and it just makes a whole lot of sense to have this decentralized bridge facilitate Ergo like as an L2 for Bitcoin, or like as a smart layer. Smart layer is better.
Right. Well, explain that. Explain like smart layer, and like I guess like what that means to kind of like the average person.
Yeah. So Bitcoin's pretty limited. I would say for better, it's limited. It's supposed to be simple, not simple, but like primary, right? Like it's not fancy enough to break. Okay. And so since then, Ergo has come around that is allowing a lot more flexible programming to be done without a huge contract risk. The languages have developed. The infrastructure has developed to keep things more decentralized. And so now, using the Rosen Bridge, people are able to bring their Bitcoin to Ergo and like do proper DeFi. Like you can do loans, you can do like we could have Bitcoin-backed stable coins, all like fully decentralized, non-custodial, non-interactive dApps. And it could all be fully open source with like no attack vectors, because it's all a sealed up machine, and it's open. You can see the insides. You don't have to trust anybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just think there's a huge opportunity there.
And then isn't also like the sort of like the smart layer too, to where it's like, say you were like a Bitcoin maximalist or something like that, or you just wanted to stay on the Bitcoin network, you could use Ergo, right, to sort of validate, do whatever you're trying to do on that layer too, like you're saying, so how long is like Bitcoin's block time? Do you know
10
offhand?
minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. So yeah. So say you don't have 10 minutes, you want to use Bitcoin as like your central sort of, I don't know, I guess financial layer, but then you could skip over to Ergo. Our block times are 2 minutes. Knock out whatever you're trying to do, and then within that same 10-minute time frame, we could do whatever you need to do on Ergo, and then slice that back into the Bitcoin layer, and then that's all integrated, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure, but I think that's
Yeah, totally, man. And I think like for me, what I would do is like have my Bitcoin on my ledger, on
right.
Bitcoin's network, but then like the money I want to use, like Ergo, like why would I be buying coffee on Bitcoin? Eventually, Ergo will be able to do that, especially with sub blocks and all this stuff that's coming out to make it faster,
right.
and usable. And
exactly.
maybe here's a good time to like transition to the end of our podcast.
Okay, perfect.
And talk about think about what it is that you're most excited about. Like maybe just think like one or two things. I'm gonna pull up the roadmap.
Okay.
And then we can kind of just share things that we're excited about, and we'll sign off.
Perfect.
Okay, here we go.
Nice.
I love how large the roadmap is for Ergo, and when I started, all of this was red. None of this was done.
Nice. Yeah, working hard for the money, so to speak.
Dude. So what do you think? What is something that you're really excited about?
Yeah, honestly, I'd say really just the community, just because I've always wanted to get into developing with, and I guess it's more of a selfish thing, but I've always wanted to be a blockchain developer working on the blockchain. And so for me, it feels more feasible than ever. But also I think with a lot of these different solutions, you could, like the other day I was thinking like, oh, you can make an NFT, then integrate that with maybe some RFID that automatically signs transactions, and then you could use that as like a gym card, then it's like permissionless gym card entry and exits. And I feel like, and so going to, I guess what I'm more excited about is like, I would like personally like to see more integrations within like real world type stuff, make it more tangible for somebody who doesn't know what the heck crypto even is. And I think that idea of making it more tangible allows for, it's like, who cares if it's crypto or not? Who cares if it's, I mean, obviously we care, but the idea is like, I don't know how a credit card transaction works. I don't know all the stuff behind it, but as long as it works, it works. I see the money leaving my account. I see the money entering my account. And so I think that is becoming more tangible. And at least, I guess to me, my perspective, but then I guess secondly, another thing I'm excited about is just to kind of see where the market goes, as well as the ecosystem as we enter the bull market, or as at least we think we're entering the bull market. It'll be interesting to see what the ecosystem does this sort of go around, how we handle maybe NFT projects trying to scrounge for money and then like leave the ecosystem. And since we've kind of been used to that, people coming into Ergo, leaving for Cardano, it'll be interesting once prices starts to come up. So I guess it's kind of multifaceted, and so it'll be interesting, I guess, that perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that, man. For me, the thing I'm most excited about, I guess, is not a single project, but just this attitude of like, oh, we're trying to participate and play by the rules, but like this is obviously like so crooked and scammy, like trying to get into these exchanges and like all this like regulation that is like looming over us, and they're kind of, the SEC is kind of like just ruling by enforcement, and then all of a sudden like, oh, it's not a security, like somebody just got the call, and
right.
It's just like so scammy. And so I see Ergo like, you know what, F this, guys, like we're just going to build our own, and they can't stop us. And so that is what I really appreciate. And so I'll point out a few things. So like all of our stable coins, So SIG-USD for sure, Dexy Gold coming out, Gluon Gold coming out, and those commodities are only going to grow in number. You know, I've been telling them, like make some uranium, man, make a uranium. And I was like, I don't know, Glasgow gets mad at me when I talk about uranium.
Hey, that'd be cool. Then we could track the nuclear projects, right? From with all the uranium being switched around.
Yeah. So I mean, my point is, we're going to have all of these things that are not fiat currency that we can use to protect ourselves. And then it's enabled by things like Machina Finance or Lithos, just like these really high level foundational projects that allow people to do for themselves what centralized authorities used to have to do. And like there was one of the ErgoHack, I think it was, I can't remember the name of it, I think it was Crystal Pool, was like, here's like a central exchange experience for people to use on Ergo, and it's fast trading. We have the trading house. Trading house just dropped from an Unreal. Like it's a decentralized order book. Like what do we need the exchange for? The only thing we need the exchange for is because there's a law that says we have to go through somebody who's approved to take our fiat. So that's what I'm excited for. To me, once that's up, Ergo is built to be the last man standing. Like
absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like with that perspective, we are almost there, especially with like even Paideia, the beta right now about to be live, or so we don't need Paideia or anything like that. That's going to be huge. Just like setting up the DAOs to be working effectively, the DAOs working efficiently. So like even the SIGs, we've been using that now for, I'm not sure how long we've been using it for, but I think it's been working pretty well. We're going to integrate that with the Sigma Knots mining pool, so the miners have a say with certain things. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see, because again, kind of going back to I guess sort of a theme to this talk that we've been having is just like, how can you sort of help within the ecosystem regardless of experience? Well, one thing would obviously is being able to vote and have a say and have a voice. And so I guess another thing that I'm excited for is like the miners being able to have a say, because I feel like constantly we always hear, oh, miners are always in it for the money, or we're always blah, 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 blah. It's like, also, yes, we've got a business, but it would be great for the miners to be able to vote and say, hey, let's make some like miner tools for the ecosystem. Let's get more miners let's do education. And I think the DAOs are going to be perfect for that. All the other decentralization tools that you mentioned. I know Lithos, I think, right, is going to be a decentralized mining setup. So that'll be very interesting to see how that plays. So when the government's ever like, hey, you can't do this, like you said, we're set up to be the last man standing with respect to, protecting our own selves. You know what I mean? We're not, the government's not going to hopefully easily figure out, who we are, I guess, from an anonymous perspective on the blockchain, although I'm sure it's transparent, so you could probably figure that out. But we have the tools to sort of mix things around to sort of create some gray areas to kind of protect ourselves, and not even from a nasty sort of criminal perspective, but just from the peering eye of Sauron, so to speak, that is the government.
Privacy is just normal,
Yeah,
normal.
exactly.
Be allowed to do that. All right, hey, I'm out of time. I looked at the clock right now, and I'm a little bit late. But so let's wrap this one up. P2Podcast. This was our first episode. Happy Ergoversary. I hope everybody enjoys all the talks, and I'm looking forward to the next ErgoHack already. Any final words, Marc?
Yeah, I would just say, if you're super bullish or interested within the Ergos ecosystem, it's not built overnight or over a day. Neither is Rome, right? So we constantly need the community support, developer support. So if you got any type of tools, please reach out, or just spend some time in learning what you can do with respect to the tools that are available, and then give it a full send. Reach out to people if you got any questions. Marc the Shark here. See ya.
See everybody.